What if everything you've been told about death is wrong? What if the greatest mind of our time, Stephen Hawking himself, discovered something so profound, so dangerous, that it had to be buried? You're about to hear a story that will challenge everything you believe about consciousness, death, and what happens next. And trust me, you'll want to hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to reveal could change your entire perspective on existence itself. Picture this. It's 2025, and a team of digital archaeologists is digging through the dusty corners of Cambridge University's classified archives. They're not looking for anything special, just routine cataloging of old files. But then they stumble across something that shouldn't exist. An audio file with a random string of numbers and letters as its name, but with metadata that makes their blood run cold. Hawking Consciousness Beyond. At first they think it's fake, has to be, right? But when they run it through acoustic analysis, the voice signature matches perfectly. This is really Stephen Hawking, speaking about something he never discussed publicly. And here's the kicker. This recording was made in the early 2000s, during the exact period when Hawking had essentially gone silent on interviews. Now, you might be thinking, so what? Hawking talked about physics all the time. But you'd be wrong, because in this recording, the man who spent his life explaining black holes and the nature of time does something completely unexpected. He talks about the soul. The conversation starts normally enough. Hawking discusses gravity, the origin of time, standard stuff for him. But then the mysterious interviewer asks a question that changes everything. Professor, if information in a black hole doesn't disappear, is it possible that consciousness also persists after the death of the body? There's this pause. You can actually hear Hawking's breathing on the recording. And then he says something that would have shocked the scientific world. This is a question I have studied more than I have publicly admitted. What follows next is absolutely mind-blowing. Hawking explains that if information truly cannot be destroyed, one of the fundamental principles of physics, then this doesn't just apply to physical objects. It applies to cognitive patterns, memories, experiences. Everything that makes you, he says. What religions call the soul may not be a separate entity, but an information structure. This structure obeys the laws of conservation. Think about that for a moment. Stephen Hawking, the man who once said there's nothing after death, is suggesting that consciousness might actually continue in some form, but not in the way traditional religions imagine it. According to this recording, Hawking had been working on a hypothesis that consciousness isn't just locked inside your brain. Instead, it's quantum information distributed across space and time. When your body dies, that information doesn't vanish, it transforms into another state. Death is not the end, he says in the recording. It is a transformation. But here's where things get really weird. When the researchers analyzed the audio file more carefully, they discovered something strange. Hidden within the recording were barely detectable digital markers like secret codes embedded in the sound itself. Audio forensics experts suggested the file had been heavily edited, possibly to hide certain sections. The question is, what were they trying to hide? The answer comes from Hawking himself. In the clearest part of the recording, he reveals something extraordinary. He mentions working with a secret group called the Cognitive Trace Program. Their goal? To find out whether consciousness leaves measurable traces after brain death. They used advanced neurointerfaces and laser spectroscopy, technologies that were officially only used for memory research. But according to Hawking, their experiments yielded results that nobody expected. In two cases, he says, We recorded anomalies. After the death of the patients, bursts of quantum activity were observed in the laboratory which could not be explained by standard models of tissue decay. Let that sink in. They actually detected something, some kind of quantum echo, after people died. When the interviewer asks if he means something like a quantum echo, Hawking responds with certainty, yes. Memory, feelings, possibly even fragments of personality were preserved in the field. Not in the usual sense, but in the form of patterns capable of interacting with the environment. This isn't just theoretical physics anymore. This is Hawking claiming they had actual evidence of consciousness surviving death. He goes even further, comparing human consciousness to black holes. Just like a black hole doesn't destroy information but transforms it, consciousness follows the same path. It doesn't disappear, it changes its form of existence. Then comes the moment that will give you chills. The interviewer quietly asks, "Is this what the soul is?" Hawking's voice drops to almost a whisper. If you remove religious interpretations, yes, it is an informational soul. It does not belong only to the body. It is part of quantum reality. Right at this moment, the recording starts breaking up, like someone was trying to jam the signal. But the researchers managed to recover some of the lost fragments using spectral analysis. In those final minutes, Hawking explains why this information was too dangerous to publish. If the existence of a cognitive trace after death is confirmed, it will change everything. Philosophy, science, religion, politics. Some will use it for good, others for control. That is why I decided not to publish this data. Perhaps humanity is not ready yet. The recording ends abruptly with a sharp click, but the mystery was just beginning. When the research team examined the file's metadata more closely, they found something incredible. Encoded coordinates. These coordinates pointed to a laboratory complex near Geneva, one of CERN's experimental facilities. Now, officially, this facility was used for testing magnetic systems. But independent sources revealed that in the early 2000s, a classified group of scientists operated there under Dr. Mark Euler, a physicist who had previously collaborated with Hawking. The researchers decided to dig deeper. After months of legal battles, they gained partial access to CERN's declassified archives. What they found there was absolutely staggering. Documents marked Cognitive Echo Project from 2002 and 2003. One report stated, during experiment number 14, anomalous quantum radiation was recorded at the moment of clinical death of the subject. The radiation continued for 4 minutes after the documented cessation of cardiac and brain activity. Another document contained a phrase that shocked even the skeptics. The probability of spontaneous signal generation in laboratory conditions is less than 1/1,000,000%. The recorded phenomenon corresponds to the cognitive trace hypothesis. This wasn't just theory anymore. Hawking and his colleagues had actually observed phenomena that could be manifestations of consciousness after death. But here's the truly disturbing part. Dr. Mark Euler disappeared in 2004, just vanished. Soon after, all employees of the Cognitive Echo project were either dismissed or reassigned. All project materials were classified. There's no official mention of the project after 2003. When members of the research team started investigating this further, they began receiving anonymous warnings. They were told to stop digging. One audio forensics expert suddenly refused to continue working and left the country. But part of the team refused to give up. They believed Hawking's hidden message was too important to bury again. That's when they made another breakthrough. Hidden within the original audio file was a digital message consisting of simple words. Consciousness is not a function, it is a path. Dr. Lewis Harding, a quantum informatics specialist on the team, proposed a revolutionary theory. If consciousness is really an informational structure, as Hawking suggested, then after death it might transition into what he called a quantum memory field, a state where personality patterns don't disappear but continue existing as waves that can even interact with each other. This led them to an even more incredible possibility: reincarnation. Harding remembered John Wheeler's early theories suggesting the universe might have the ability to remember information. If this was true, then consciousness doesn't just persist, it might actually return in new forms. The team started cross-referencing CERN's experimental data with real cases of unusual memories. They turned to the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, where for over 50 years, researchers had been documenting children who claimed to remember past lives. The correlations were terrifying. In 13 cases, children described events related to places and people that had been documented in the Cognitive Echo Project. A 6-year-old boy from Texas described in detail experiments involving magnetic traps in the Geneva laboratory, even though his family had no connection to science or Europe. A girl from California recalled number sequences that matched test codes from the project. These weren't coincidences. Dr. Harding concluded that if consciousness information truly persists, it can be picked up by new carriers, children whose neural networks somehow resonate with quantum traces of past consciousness. But one crucial question remained: why do some consciousnesses persist and return while others vanish? The answer came from the final recovered fragment of Hawking's recording. Not all patterns are compatible. Only those that carry development continue. The others are erased. This is the natural selection of consciousness. Hawking wasn't just acknowledging the existence of the soul. He was proposing that reincarnation followed evolutionary laws. Only consciousnesses that contributed to development would continue. This was scientific reincarnation. When the research team published their initial findings, the scientific establishment erupted. Cambridge and CERN officially stated that such hypotheses fell outside verifiable science. Many physicists labeled the work as dangerous speculation, but others in academic circles supported the research. Professor Corinne Blake from Princeton said, "Modern science is too afraid of questions that challenge traditional dogmas. If we ignore phenomena that don't fit our models, we limit our own development." Then came another breakthrough. The researchers found a CERN document describing a 2002 experiment involving people with unusual cognitive abilities. These weren't just people with exceptional memory or intelligence. They exhibited spontaneous recollections of events they could never have experienced. The document mentioned a group of carriers of cognitive patterns with signs of memory transfer, and referred to something called the Chosen Eight. This echoed Hawking's phrase, "Only compatible patterns continue." The researchers realized they might be dealing with a group of consciousnesses that were not only preserved, but intentionally guided to perform specific tasks in the future. Over the next 2 years, the team documented an increase in reincarnation memories among children worldwide, especially in the US, UK, Germany, and Japan. These children didn't just have memories, they displayed remarkable abilities in mathematics, music, and engineering. Many spoke of tasks they needed to accomplish, though they couldn't explain what those tasks were. Joint research with the University of Virginia revealed that most of these children were born during periods of significant social and technological change. As Hawking had predicted, the consciousnesses weren't returning randomly. They were part of an evolutionary process. Then something extraordinary happened. Dr. Harding received an encrypted message. Hawking knew more than you think. This is not the end. This is the beginning. Attached was a file titled Protocol of the Evolution of Consciousness. Inside was a document outlining a theory developed by Hawking with a small group of physicists, neurobiologists, and philosophers. The document stated, "Consciousness is not a product of the brain but a basic structure of reality. Black holes and consciousness obey the same laws of information preservation. The soul is an informational pattern that evolves through the experience of life and death. Only those consciousnesses that contribute to development continue. The others disappear. During periods of crisis, compatible consciousnesses return to help humanity take the next step." At the end was Hawking's signature and his final words. "The fear of death is the fear of losing form, but information does not disappear. We do not die, we transform." These revelations explained phenomena of spontaneous memory, inexplicable abilities in children, and the synchronicity of individuals who changed history. But they also revealed potential dangers. Such knowledge could become a weapon if controlled by the wrong people. Harding's team decided not to keep the information secret. They published their findings openly, causing a massive public reaction. Millions began questioning their own memories, fears, and experiences of déjà vu. For many, this became not just a scientific hypothesis, but a completely new way of thinking about existence. The implications are staggering. If Hawking was right, then death as we understand it is an illusion. We are informational beings, constantly evolving, constantly transforming. The greatest minds of history might literally be returning to guide us through our most challenging moments. Some consciousnesses are chosen to continue, to help humanity evolve. Others fade away. It's natural selection on a cosmic scale, with consciousness itself as the unit of evolution. The question now is, what does this mean for you? Are you one of the compatible patterns? Do you carry traces of past experiences, past knowledge, past missions? Have you ever felt like you were meant for something bigger, something you can't quite understand? According to Hawking's hidden research, the answers might be encoded in your very consciousness, waiting to be unlocked, waiting to guide you toward your true purpose in this vast, interconnected web of evolving information that we call reality. The story of consciousness is the story of all humanity, and as Hawking predicted, this is only the beginning. We're not just biological machines with temporary awareness. We're eternal information patterns, constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly transforming across the endless expanse of space and time. Death isn't the end. It's just another step in the eternal dance of consciousness through the cosmos.